Good day, students. Today we're talking about vaccination and infection diseases. Immunization. What does it mean? Immunization is a method of individual or massive protection of population against infection diseases as a result of creation or intensify of artificial immunity. I think you know that we live in the reels of COVID infection, and for now we have the key problem is like as a vaccination through COVID-19, and we haven't to protect collective immunity because we have a very small percent of vaccinated persons. Immunization can be specific against a particular pathogen and non-specific activation of the immunity system in general. And it can be active. The body produces the specific antibodies himself in response to vaccination. And it can be passive, ready-made antibodies. So that means we can choose what kind of drug we can use for immunization. Active or passive is specific or non-specific. What's about modern tendency? Vaccination is especially important for patients with chronic healthy conditions and reducing the list of conditions. If you read information about vaccination for the COVID-19, you see that World Health Organization and Health Organization of countries Health Organization are make more than biggest list of illnesses, which one we can prevent, which we can see in the patients, and we should have to prevent COVID-19. We vaccinated. We haven't sorry. We have problems through the vaccination. What does it mean, vaccination? Vaccination is injection of a weakened or killed microbe or artificially synthesized protein imitation to microprotein in order to stimulate the immunity system to produce antibodies against the microbe, thereby preventing disease. For example, what's in about synthesized proteins? We have split vaccines through the flu. Now you should be prevented through the flu. It's October. We have a season's vaccination company for this respiratory infection. And one type of this vaccine is split vaccine. How they're working? Microbiologists are synthesized proteins of the flu, of the live flu, on the X variants of the chicken. And it means that they don't use the clear protein of this virus, they are using just a synthesized or chemical protein. It's not alive, it's not poisons, it's just synthesized and it's not sorry, I will forget this word. It's safety proteins. Revaccination, that means is reinjection of vaccine, is aimed at maintaining of immunity after previous vaccination. Once again, COVID-19, you know that for now we have a series of vaccination, for example for vegan COVID vac 2 times, and vaccination through each 6 months should to be vaccinated, or for the flu against the first series vaccination for in the childhood for children for younger 8 years old, they must be vaccinated for 2 times, and after that each year they must be vaccinated. As that as you are as adult persons, you must be vaccinated for the flu in each year. For example, in the autumn. For now, what's about types of vaccines? Attenuated vaccine is a vaccine created by reducing the virulence at the pathogen, but still keeping it available or alive. Attenuation takes an infection against and alters is to alters it so that it becomes harmless, or less virulent. Pathogens with immunity deficiency can have problems with these kind of vaccines. Inactivated or killed vaccines. Vaccine is which one consisting of virus particles, bacteria or other pathogens that have been grown and cultured and then killed using the method such as a heart reduction, ultraviolet or formaldehyde. Chemical vaccines have components of the cellular wall or other parts of the pathogen. Anatoxin is a vaccine from inactivated toxin produced by bacteria. After a special processing, the toxin's properties are getting lost, but immunogenic properties stay. For example, vaccines of diphtheria and tetanus. Recombinant vaccine is a vaccine produced from recombinant DNA technology. This involves inserting the DNA encoding an antigen, such as a bacterial surface protein, that stimulate an immunity response into bacterial or mammalian cell, expressing the antigens in these cells and then perfecting it from them. Synthetic vaccine is a vaccine consists mainly of synthetic peptides, carbohydrates or antigens. They are usually considered to be safer than vaccines from bacterial culture. Created vaccines synthetically has the ability to increase the speed of production. And associated vaccines are the vaccines of different types which consist of different components. At this slide you see schedule of vaccination of USA. Let's talk about it. In the line you see what kind of illnesses they can prevent. Hepatitis B, rotavirus infection, diphtheria, tetanus and acellular pertussis vaccine, hemophilic influenza type of B, pneumococcal, inactivated poliovirus vaccine, influenza, measles, mumps, rubella, varicella, hepatitis meningococcal infection, once again tetanus, diphtheria and acellular pertussis, after 7 years old, human papillomavirus infection, meningococcal B, and pneumococcal polysaccharide vaccines. And you see in what kind of age groups they can prevent these illnesses. For the dose of vaccination and doses of revaccination. For example, when we're talking about hepatitis type B, we see that the first dose your patient must have in the birth period for newborns, and the second dose he must have from the first month to the second month. As usually, he will have it when he will be 1 month old, and he should have a third dose of vaccination from the 6 months to the 18 months old. And it's like through the same pictures you see from the other preventions. With, for example, so let's talk about inactivated poliovirus. It means it's IPV. In Russian Federation, we are using IPV vaccine and oral polio vaccine, and we have a different vaccination schedule. And let's talk about IPV. They're using the first dose at the 2 months old, the second dose at 4 months old, and the third dose from the 6 months to the 18th month, and the fourth dose at the 4-6 years old. So, and we're talking about associated vaccines, yeah? And it's here you can see how it's working. What's about associated vaccines? We see that diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis, hemophilic infection, and polio we can prevent through the 1 day. And we see the associated vaccines is like pentaximi, tetraximi, and others vaccines, which including all these infections. Rotavirus is just one another drug. As usually it's in per oral way of vaccinated. This is intramuscular way, and we see one vaccine and is with diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, hemophilic, and polio. And in this day we can prevent pneumococcal infection in the another muscle. That means we can prevent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 infections in one muscle, that 6 infections for the second muscle, and then the other injection to the muscle, for example, hepatitis B, the second dose, or we can take to your patient to drink the vaccine for the rotavirus infection, just for 1 day. It's very simple, and it's very important for the timely safety and for the good protection for these infection diseases. And we see doses for vaccination. As usually we're talking about the periods of the older. For example, older even 1 year old. As usually it's in revaccination doses. But yes, of course, I don't talking about MMR vaccine and varicella and hepatitis A, because as usually we can do just the first doses of vaccination. So the next slide. Here you see the schedule of vaccination in Russian Federation. You should tell to us on this exam, it's in front of document number 125 and through the 21st of March of 2014. And you see it here that we should vaccinate persons, a child before 18 years old, and adults through the 18 years old to the death. And we see points B and points RV. Points B means vaccination. And you see vaccination 1, vaccination 2, vaccination 3, and vaccination 4. That means it can be 4 vaccination points. And you see vaccination for another period. You see this different color for these points, and for example the orange for each persons of each age group. The pink point to the persons who must be prevented for the epidemiological reasons. And the green point, the persons about which one we don't know that for vaccination analysis, who wasn't ill or who was vaccinated just one for the rubella and mumps. And you see, for example, once again, we talked here about hepatitis B, that we use the dose 1 in the birth and the second dose in the month or 2 months old, and the third dose in here it's 2. We have seen one mark. The changes of our color. The orange range for of recommended age for all children, green range for recommended age for a course of immunization, pink range of recommended age for a central high risk group, and others. And blue range recommended against for non-high risk groups that may receive vaccines subject to individual clinical section marking. And the third, once again, hepatitis B, the third dose for the 6 months to the 18 months. In Russian Federation, we have 2 ways to prevention hepatitis B. In normal, for the healthy babies, we see vaccination in their birth and the second dose in 1 year months old, and the third dose of vaccination at 6 months old. Yes, of course, we can see that baby can have something changes with the schedule of vaccination if he was sick or he has other reasons. Mother can be mother can forget, and unfortunately, or she don't agree to vaccinate in this period of his life, and we should change the periods of vaccination. But now we see in the normal vaccination for the 0, 1 and 6 months old. And if you see persons with the group of risk, for example from the mother with hepatitis B, or he had hemotransfusions or others situation, that means we should to prevent him for a first dose of the 0 months on the birth of 1 month, 2 months, and 4 dose in 1 year old. And in our vaccines, I told you that in Russian Federation we have oral polio vaccines. You see poliomyelitis at this line, poliomyelite. For the first point we using inactivated poliovirus vaccine. For the second point against inactivated poliovirus vaccine, and for healthy persons for the first vaccine point we using oral OPV, oral poliovirus vaccine, and for further vaccination too we using oral poliovirus vaccine. For the persons from the group of risk, we are using just an activated poliovirus vaccine. And it's simple if we are using just an activated poliovirus vaccine, because in just one shot in combined vaccines. For the next slide we will talk about what kind of types and how they cause. And we see hepatitis B, pneumococcal, pertussis, diphtheria, tetanus, poliovirus, hemophilic infection, MMR for these 3 points, and the flu. I know that some of you from the Indian, our first students who worked with us were just from India, and they helped me to find their schedule of vaccination. And you see this shadow of India, and what the difference you see that we are using BCG vaccine to here in Russian Federation we see tuberculosis, and we don't see BCG in USA. We see BCG in the birth, hepatitis B, and let's see OPV, oral poliovirus infection, in the birth. You see this. For a 6 weeks old, they prevent through the hepatitis B, DTP, inactivated poliovirus vaccines, Haemophilus influenzae B, rotavirus, and pneumococcal infection, and they are vaccinated from these illnesses from the vaccinated line from 10 weeks and 14 weeks. We see this interval time break from the vaccine, just 4 weeks. In Russian Federation, you see 3 months, 4.5 months, and 6 months. That means 1.5 months, 45 days between each dose of vaccinated. In India, just 4 weeks, 1 month. And after that, it's 6 months, just prevention for the hepatitis B and oral poliovirus, and in 9 months, oral poliovirus vaccine. MMR at 9 months. In Russian Federation, just it's like 1 year old. Typhoid, just in India, don't use it in USA, and in Russian too. We don't use it in the 12 years old, and hepatitis A at 1 year old. If you can tell me about your country, please tell me about this. I will read it, and I can talk to you about your schedules of vaccination, or you can talk about this on your classes with your teacher. We want to start with you too, and to read your schedule of vaccination from your countries. Please write for me this information. Tuberculosis. The incidence of the children with newly diagnosed active tuberculosis in the period of 2012-2017 has a general tendency to decrease, although slower in comparison with a decrease in the incidence rate of adult population. At the same time, there is increase in the incidence of children with active pulmonary tuberculosis with microbiological confirming bacterial excretion, which indicated a more severe from the disease. There is also a slower downward trend in incidence among young children 1 to 2 years old compared with older children. This may indicate a lot of detection of foster tuberculosis in families with infants. Vaccination against tuberculosis is carried out with BCG or BCG-M vaccine and vaccination with BCG vaccine in accordance with the schedule of preventive vaccination. The timing for vaccination is determined by the national schedule of preventive vaccination. As usually, it's the third, 7th day of life. Indication for vaccination with BCG vaccine, BCG-M vaccine. In nursing wards of premature newborn medical hospitals, at the second stage of nursing, children with a body weight of 2,300 grams or more before the discharge from the hospital home. And in children's clinic, children who have not received the tuberculosis vaccine in the hospital. Children who have not been vaccinated in the first days of life are vaccinated for the first 2 months in the children's clinic or other medical and preventive medical organization without first standing month-old test with 2 tuberculosis units. Children older than 2 months of age must be pre-vaccinated with monthly test. And children with a negative reaction to tuberculin and are vaccinated. The interval between the monthly tests and vaccination should be at least 3 days and normal 2 weeks. Why? Because it can be illnesses. Contraindications to BCG vaccine. Premature to 4 degrees with body weight at birth less than 2,500 grams. Acute diseases. Vaccination is postponed until the end of an acute manifestation of the disease and exacerbation of chronic diseases, intrauterine infection and others. Immunodeficiency conditions, malignant neoplasms, generalized BCG infection, and human immunodeficiency virus infection in a child. What's about contraindications to vaccination of BCG-M vaccine? It's a light BCG vaccine. BCG-M. Premature birth, weight less to 1,300 grams. Acute diseases, immunodeficiency conditions, malignant neoplasms, and general BCG infection. What's about BCG vaccination? Indication for vaccination. Healthy children aged 6-7 years who have a negative reaction to the mantle test. Please remember, we wean 2 years before vaccination, including the year of vaccination. That means, if you want to vaccinate a baby of 7 years old, you must to see his mantle test at this year when he's 7 years old and when he was 6 years old. The reaction of considered negative in the complex absence of infiltrate, hyperemia, and or in the presence of injection prick. Contraindication to vaccination. Acute infections and non-infection diseases, exacerbation of chronic diseases, including allergic ones. Immune deficiency states, malignant blood diseases, and neoplasm. Tuberculosis patients, persons who have had tuberculosis, positive and double salt reaction to the Mumps test, and complications of the previous administration of BCG vaccine. Vaccination of pertussis. In this slide, we talked about pertussis for our first lecture, and for now move in detail. DTaP. You see this difference, DTaP and DTP. D that means diphtheria, T tetanus, P pertussis, and A that means acellular. And when we talk about DTP, it means the whole cell pertussis vaccine. When we talk about acellular, it means just a proteins of this varicose pertussis. And here you see TDP. That means the full two tetanus toxic and reduced diphtheria toxic. So once again, his cut, not so full as like in the DTP or DTP. And acellular pertussis antigens, once again, not good to not so big, even DTP or DTP. And it can be used for adolescents and adult persons. IPV, hepatitis B, and hemophilic inflammations type B. In this slide you can see vaccines. DTaP, Delta-cell, and Infandrix. It's using in a lot of countries of the world. Please write what kind of vaccines using in your country. DTaP plus IPV plus hepatitis B, Pediatrics. DTaP plus RPV plus hemophilus infection type B, Pentaxel. DTaP plus IPV, Kinrix, and Quadracel. TDAP, Adacet Boostrix, and other vaccines without pertussis or just pertussis. We don't use it in the world. It can be without pertussis vaccines, DT, R, or TD. Measles. The incubation period from 9 to 17 days. In the patient receiving immunoglobulin, blood components, plasma, 21 days. Catarrhal period during 3-4 days. The period of Rayleigh mucopopular exanthema develops from 4-5 days of illness and lasts 3-4-5 days. It is characterized by the maximum severing of fever, intoxication, catarrhal syndromes, and appearance of basically complex spots in the oral cavity, and it can be conjunctival keratitis too. Pigmentation period, duration 7-14 days. Sea rash, fever, conjunctivitis, sneezing, and others. This is photos of the rash, spots of basic pilative conflict, catarrhal, pictures of the area of oral, and once again conjunctivitis. What kind of about vaccination? Twice with a 3 months interval. Relative contraindications. Acute disease. Meningococcal meningitis or other serious acute diseases of nervous system, and surgery. Rubella. Rubella is an acute infection disease transmitted by airborne droplets and characterized by the presence of symptoms of moderate intoxication, intermittent subfebrile fever, small spotted or spotted papular exanthema. Menocatarrhal phenomena and an increase in peripheral lymph nodes, mainly the occipital and posterior ones. Clinic incubation period 11-24 days, prodromal period duration from the several hours to a day, hype season last 2-3 days, in the period of convalescence. You see this rash in this picture, and it can be teratogen effect to the pregnant women. Cataract, congenital heart diseases, microcephaly, and he will come here. Parotitis. disease, characterized by the presence of symptoms of intoxication, fever, and increase in one or more salivary glands, and all of them damage to the glandular organs and the central nervous system. We can see intoxication syndrome, the defeat of the parotid salivary glands, and damage to the submandibular salivary glands and others. Sublingual, pancreas, sexual gland, prostate glands, and defeat of the female glands too, female genital glands. This change of the asymmetrical face, more than bigger in the side of the lesion. You see this change of the parotid salivation glands, for example. Protection is with associated vaccine for the measles, rubella, and mumps. Global experience has shown that 2 doses of vaccine are required for long-term protection against mumps. The first dose of the mumps vaccine should be given at the age of 12-18 months. In connection with the objective of the program aimed at optimized vaccination coverage, at the age of administration of the second dose can vary between the second years of the life and the age of the school entry. And using MMR vaccine, and it's live vaccine. Polio. I think you know that child holds spinal paralysis. Here, Medina disease, it can be, and we see the change of our nervous system. What kind of contraindication for a live vaccine? Severe allergy to aminoglycosides and chicken eggs. Because microbiologists grow poliovirus in the chicken eggs. Severe reaction for the or complication after the previous dose. Primary immune deficiency and tumors and pregnancy. Signs of immune deficiency. Severe recurrent, especially purulent disease, parapractitis, anorectal fistula, persistent oral candidosis, pneumocystic pneumonia, persistent eczema, thrombocytopenia, immune deficiency in family. Tumors or immunosuppressor drugs, 3 months remissions or 3 months after the end of the therapy, and we can vaccinate your patient. Vaccination during HIV. Children of HIV plus mothers change oral polio vaccine to the inactivated and BCG vaccine just after 18 months old if the child is HIV negative. HIV negative he can be if mother has a correct treatment for the HIV. Measles and our live vaccines are used even for the risk because measles among HIV plus is really severe. HIV-negative children of HIV plus mothers can be vaccinated with live vaccines without immunity research. You must care them through the infection, for the whole of infection. Other vaccines, killed and recombinant vaccines for children of HIV plus mothers are according to the schedule. These vaccines can be used among HIV plus children if they have severe immune deficiency. Inactivated vaccines are used like usually. Probably an extra dose will be needed. If you vaccinate your patient after immunobiological drugs, that means you should wait 3 months after first dose of immunoglobulin, hemotransfusion of plasma or plasma transfusion, and 5-6 months after second dose of immunoglobulin or big volume of blood, and till 1 year after large dose of intravirus immunoglobulin. We should talk about normal reaction after vaccination. Predictive events. It's normal. Noted in instruction: not high fever, rash, growing with paroxysmal glands, local redness and pain. If this kind of reaction happens too often, that can point to the increasing of reactogenic of the vaccine. The reasons of adverse events. Complications, because the bad quality are the same types of remissive. Disruption during transporting and storage. Individual reactions happen very more often, like allergic and neurologic reaction. Intercurrent disease of the same time with the vaccination is the most often form of the adverse event after the vaccination. Strong evidence for the disease diagnostics should be gathered. For now, we're talking about complication of vaccination. It's not normal. What kind of complication? Anaphylactic shock and other immediate allergic reaction, serum sickness syndrome, encephalitis, encephalitis, myelitis, mono or polyneuritis, polyradiculitis, and others, and they can be which appeared only after vaccination and reappeared during 12 months after it. It can be too acute myocarditis, nephritis, thrombocytopenic purpura, and others, and different forms of the generated BCG infection after the BCG vaccine. What is should monitoring? Local reaction: abscess, lymphadenitis, including purulent, heavy local reaction, swelling outside the skin, pain, and redness more than 3 days, or the need for hospitalization. Differential diagnosis of the adverse events. Reaction for a live vaccine can appear earlier than 4 days and later than 12-14 days after vaccination, and 15 days after polio and paroxysmal vaccine. after vaccination encephalitis must be differential with all other diseases which can cause encephalitic symptoms. Neuritis and facial nerve Bell's palsy cannot be complication of the polio vaccine or any other vaccine. Immediate allergy creation not later than 24 hours after the vaccination, anaphylactic shock not later than 4 hours. Intestinal, renal symptoms, heart and respiration insufficiency are indistinctive for the vaccination complication. Catarrh syndrome can be a specific reaction to measles vaccine. If it's happened not earlier even 5 days and not later than 14 days after vaccination, it's indistinctive for other vaccines. Arthralgia and arthritis are distinctive only for rubella vaccine. Poliomyelitis associated with vaccination can happen for 4-15 days after vaccination among vaccination people until 16 days among the contact. Vaccine-associated poliomyelitis is necessarily accompanied by a residual effect. Lymphadenitis caused by vaccination strain BCG develop on the same site with the injection. More often axillary lymph nodes, more rarely infra and supraclavicular lymph nodes, not local pain or redness. BCG osteitis. Child of 6-12 months of age, localization between epiphysis and diaphysis, local hyperthermia without white humor, swelling of a local joint, rigidity and muscle atrophy of the infirmity. Thank you for your attention. Be healthy.